there was kind of a trend that in-depth studies, maybe less interest in the last few years, but now I see there's a lot of interest, so I'm very happy to see that. And that's also a sign of being extremely fortunate. Yeah, so the BP is kind of incredible kind of program to get a very good understanding of the Buddhist teaching. Yeah, so one of the main aspects of the Buddhist teachings is to generate correct motivation or intention. And it says on the schedule of prayers, but maybe just generate correct motivation while we're here in order to discuss the things of this 5-year program for a particular purpose, right? So why are we studying these kind of in-depth aspects of Buddhism? Basically for the purpose to eliminate suffering of self and others. Yeah, so we're going to talk about mind science, we're going to talk about philosophy, and we're going to go into a little bit more depth of those aspects all the way up to the stages of nirvana and enlightenment. Yeah? So for that purpose, we have to motivate ourselves in a particular way. I think most of you are already familiar with the Lamrim, yeah? The stages of the path to enlightenment to a certain extent. So I try to think in those lines that we're here together in order to understand why are we together for engaging in this in-depth studies in order to put it into practice, and well, for the benefits of eliminating suffering for oneself and eliminating the suffering of others in accordance with renunciation and bodhicitta. And then also for the purpose of understanding reality. Yeah? So without understanding reality, we will not be able to even have a happier human life and not even able to achieve those states of nirvana and enlightenment. So for that purpose, we're here to understand it. So maybe just for half a minute, just think that we're here for a particular purpose, and that's to eliminate suffering for self and others. And that's why we're going to discuss if this BP program is the right way to move forward. Yeah, so try to generate the motivation for yourself. All right, so basic program, it says still basic, but actually for an average person in the West, I think it's quite in-depth kind of study of the Buddhist path to enlightenment. Yeah? So the Buddhist teachings has different aspects. Yeah? We have universal aspects and we have aspects of the Buddhist practitioner, so to say. So that means that there are aspects of a universal way to discuss the teachings of the Buddha, and that's in relation with the scientific aspects of it, like mind science, psychology, as well as the philosophical aspects of Buddhism. They can also be studied in a universal way, right? So those two aspects we're going to study in depth in this program as well. So that means that not only it will benefit yourself, but later on you will able, by having this fundamental understanding of Buddhism, to help others more on different levels, right? So not only on the level for the Buddhist practitioner, but also on the levels that is needed in modern society, right? On the levels of the universal aspects of how do we look at problems, or how do we look at problems with the mind? What are destructive emotions, and how do we get rid of those? You know, so those aspects will be covered as well. Then on top of that, we also, next to these two secular or universal, so to say, aspects of psychology and philosophy, then we go into, you know, the aspects of the Buddhist path, yeah, because the basic program is referring to the basic understandings of the Buddhist path to enlightenment. Yeah, so just in accordance with our motivation, we talked about the Lamrim, or the stages of the path to enlightenment. So these teachings of the Buddha started with the Buddha himself, yeah, moved out of compassion. He taught these teachings, and then they were being examined by the scholars of Nalanda, and then came all the way down to the power of different masters to Tibet. And that's why we're very fortunate to have this incredible, rich Nalanda tradition present until the present day, thanks to the kindness of the Tibetans. In this particular tradition, we mainly focus upon the Tibetan tradition, though throughout the course I will bring in things from science, because my interest also lays in that field quite a bit, as well as bringing things for other traditions, yeah? So like the Theravada tradition, Buddhist philosophy, etc. So these teachings of the Buddha, examined by the teachings or the teachers and the different scholars of Nalanda, is a vast amount of teachings. Yeah? So you can study it day and night until you die. Basically, if you look behind me, you see a few scriptures here, texts. We have them taken out of the cabinet because we're reading. It's the Sakadava, or the holy month of Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and parinirvana. So seeing that as auspiciousness, then every day we read a little bit. So I was reading a little bit of the scriptures, and it's very interesting material, you know. And what is even more interesting is a program like the BP actually gives an incredible summary of this complete teachings of the Buddha. Yeah? So if you see the amount of volumes behind me is about 300 in total, and they're not all that easy to be read, you know. So thanks to the kindness of masters like Atisha and Lama Tsongkhapa, who compiled kind of text, which is called Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, or the Lamrim. Yeah? So that actually summarizes the whole Buddhist path to enlightenment, yeah? From scratch until full completion. So that is basically the core essence of the basic program as well, because we're going to start with Lama Tsongkhapa's middle length of the Lamrim. And by going through that text, we will deal with many different aspects of philosophy, psychology. So those aspects have been dealt with as well. That first we go to the first section of the Lamrim, then we go into an introduction in how the view of reality is being presented according to the tenets. And then we go into more in-depth, what is actually ultimate reality. Yeah? So we will guide you in a kind of proper way through these kind of understandings of the Buddhist teachings, of this path to enlightenment. And then, as I said before, in order to understand how to develop our mind, then it's also very crucial to get a good understanding of our consciousness. What are constructive emotions? What are destructive emotions? How do I deal with those things on a day-to-day basis? As well as how can I get the realizations of a deeper understanding? Yeah? So that will be dealt with a subject called awareness and knowers. Yeah? And in a similar way, in order to develop the mind, we have to know also what is possible. What are the potentials within us? You know, we have these destructive emotions. We also have a lot of very good qualities, yeah? Or the potentials, or the constructive emotions. So even more than that, we have a kind of Buddha potential. So there's also one subject will go over these aspects of our development and the possibility to develop with regards to Buddha potential. And then next to those aspects, we study in the Lamrim also the Bodhisattva ideal, right? How to generate a kind heart and how to put it into practice in relation to others, because we're all social human beings, so it's important to know how to act in particular ways in society, with our relationships and as well as with friends and families, and how to take everything in daily life, you know, into the practice. So it doesn't mean that to study BP that you have to disappear and find a cave somewhere far away and then have a Zoom around the cave, something like that. You know, it's not. In modern society, we have to be realistic. You know, so for me, initially, I was in this, you know, monastic university for 20 years, 2 decades, and then I end up in this kind of city, like the capital of the UK, in the capital of England, London, right? So then it's a kind of a change you can imagine in life. Yeah? So that means that for most people on the other side of the screen, they don't have the time to live like, or capacity to live like Milarepa, right? Though at the end of the course, we will help you to set up retreats. So we help you to let you structure, you know, weekend retreats or weeks retreats, or at the completion, like a few weeks at a time or even a month at a time. So we help you in those kind of structures. Yeah? So though it is online, as Venerable Fabienne already said, it is for me also completely new. You know, I think for most people, because you're there and I'm here. Venerable Fabienne is actually sitting in the library and I'm sitting in the temple. You know? So it's kind of different than this morning also when I was giving a talk in Nalanda in France. It's very difficult also for the teacher if you don't see the participants. You know? Then it's very difficult to relate to. Normally I have to see the faces, so then I know it's time for a joke or a story, or, you know, juice it up, as we say, you know, to juice up the material a little bit more. So that's a little bit of a challenge. Another challenge is that you in your room, I'm here. Right? So to enhance the connectivity or the family feeling, so to say, then as Renfrew Fabienne already announced, we will have, next to the regular program, we have kind of teacher assistants, you know, who already graduated in the past, who have their own experience, who live a life like you know, and who know how to apply these things in daily life, as well as know how to help you with question answer sessions, how to structure your meditation, etc., etc. Yeah. And also from my side, I'm also happy to dedicate some more time. People who live in different time zones, or people who are a particular group, or a particular center, or study group whatsoever. So next to the regular program meetings, on the side, we can also meet and have a discussion, or question answer session, or exchange experience, so to say. So in that way, it becomes a little bit more than just an online kind of activity. Yeah, so we become kind of family member. But I just go back to where I started this with, is when I came back for 20 years in the monastery here in London. You can imagine it's quite, I mean, some people think maybe a culture shock or something like that, but thanks to the incredible team we have here in Jamyang, I think within a week or 2 weeks, I felt completely at home. So I think that's good to know that we have an incredible supportive team as well to help you to go through this program. So we talked about the stages of path to enlightenment. We talked about the tenets, right? To understand the different views of Buddhist philosophy in order to understand reality. We talked about awareness and knowers to understand the mind. So we talked about, we're gonna deal also with Buddha potential. How can I develop this potential I have within me, right? And as well as we're gonna touch upon the Bodhisattva Charyavatara in order to put more emphasis on the mind trainings of the Lamrim, yeah, or the Bodhisattva ideal, so to say. And then we conclude the whole program with Vajrayana. Yeah? So the first subjects, as being called, is all sutra based, and then towards the end we have the incredible fortunate vehicle of the Vajrayana. So that concludes the whole basically layout. Yeah, Rona, she will kindly introduce you a little bit more about structure, how we're going to structure the program with some clear explanations. So for us, for the time being, it's good to know that the basic program, just to be realistic, it's not just, you know, have fun. And of course we're going to have fun, but it's not only kind of, you know, watch the show on the weekends and that's it, right? We have to be realistic. So also from your own side, there should be some effort, you know, in order to understand the Buddhist teachings. If you go back to where I come from, we studied these kind of subjects for 20 years, 6 times a week, you know, and the way we studied in big monastic communities is not like university degree, you know. So that means that when we're studying, when I went to university in the Netherlands, it's slightly different. You know, the university in the Netherlands is kind of a holiday compared to these 20 years of in-depth studies and attending debates and, you know, basically similar to discussions. Yeah. So that all 20 years, people on the other side of the screen probably, they won't be able to commit to 20 years, right? So we know that. So that's why Lama Zopa Rinpoche, together with a few already teachers within the organization, they came down to compromise and to actually give a complete overview of this in-depth study program of 20 years. You know? So it's a very fortunate situation, actually. If you think about 1 weekend a month, right? And then, of course, on the side, you have to study, and then we're going to offer discussion groups, we're going to offer meditations, and question answer sessions, you know. So it's a kind of a little bit commitment from your own side as well. Yeah? If you really want to get a good understanding of the Buddha Dharma, then this course, though it's, you know, it spans over 5 years, but I think definitely, as you probably will hear from those who graduate, also from their experience, it gives an incredible fundamental understanding of the Buddhist teaching, you know, which has great benefits for your own day-to-day life, from your own practice in working towards generating more qualities of mind, and it all the way up to developing the full potential of Buddhahood. You know? So in that way, I'm very fortunate. Really, if you think that this tradition of Nalanda being incredibly preserved by the Tibetans, you know, in this way, including oral transmissions, you know. That's very, very moving. It's kind of, if those who have a little bit idea of the precious human rebirth or studied a little bit of Lamrim, it's basically the impossible became possible. If you really look at the, how difficult it is to achieve a precious human rebirth and how difficult it is to do something like this, you know, to put imprints in your mind, though to get realizations, that of course will take time, but at least we're starting with the whole project, right? We put imprints in our mind throughout these 5 years that one day they will ripen, you know. Same when we were in the monastery, in the first years when language was difficult, you know, and the culture difficult, you know, living with Tibetans who, you know, have different kind of habits than average Westerners, especially when it comes to hygiene and living together in small kind of rooms. So it's quite a challenge to say in the beginning. But then you learn so much, because if you commit yourself to the whole collection of topics, same in the monastery, then certain topics generate more interest than others, right? But all the topics, they actually part of one whole, you know. So that means that if you do the complete program, then you start to see the puzzle coming together, you know, because up till the present, I see in many centers, and also when I did some Lamrim teachings before, that people do all little individual aspects of Buddhism. A little bit of the Four Noble Truths, a little bit of the 12 links, a little bit of bodhicitta, but they never can really put it all together as one uniform kind of incredible system, you know. So that means that this program, you know, though only 5 years, and it asks for a little bit of a commitment, you know, but if you do the complete program, you get an incredible understanding of the Buddhist teaching, right? So, and then whatever you do after that, you can relate it perfectly within the Buddhist path. So in that regard, extremely fortunate to have the opportunity to do something like this, though it asks for effort, as I said before, right? And it's not always easy. And when it doesn't look very easy, you just have to don't give up and keep going, because from a Buddhist point of view, you know, if you leave aside those things that are difficult and you only do the things that are easy, then you never move forward, right? So similar way, if somebody never points out our mistakes in ordinary life, and we think we already quite well, you know, developed, then we never increase our development, right? We never become better, you know. So that's why it's important to know that it will be difficult sometimes, yeah, certain aspects, especially tenets and awareness and knowers, yeah, but there's reasons for that. So I have, you know, I have some experience of talking with people who went to this kind of subject, so I will juice it up, so to say, a little bit with with some scientific findings as well as with stories, yeah, and relate it back and forth to the path. Yeah, so yeah, that's from my side mainly what I would like to share with you, that in order, if you really want to get a step further in your understanding of the Buddhist path, you know, then during a course like this, commit yourself to like 5 years, though it asks for effort. And next to the weekends, of course, you have to read material, you have to discuss things, but then it starts to come alive, right? So that coming alive will not happen after the first few weekends, yeah. But that, generally speaking, if we complete, you know, the Lamrim, then we can relate everything in the future we study back to this kind of complete overview of the teachings. Yeah? So that's extremely being preserved, as I said before, and even until the present, we have still a huge amount of masters, you know, who has actually realized these teachings. So it's a very living tradition, so to say, yeah? Including His Holiness Dalai Lama, and a lot of oral transmissions are there, you know, of many important texts, all the way preserved to the present, of these incredible teachings of the basic program as well. You know, so that's very fortunate. You know, really, if you think about how difficult it is to do something like this, just look around you. How many people, even here in the UK, in you know, in London or different places in the world, who is really interested in spirituality? There's very few. You know? And then among those who are interested in spirituality, who is really putting some efforts to put it into, study it, examine it, put it into practice is even much less. So the same true for us in Buddhism, though it has universal aspects as well, but to find people who really dedicate to something like this is very rare, from the point of view of number. So, and then the imprints you put in your mind of doing something like this, though you won't be able to get realization straight away or get understanding straight away, but over time, when we move through the subjects, then we go back, relate it back to other subjects, back and forth. Then things start to come alive, and then the insights can come, and then especially at the conclusion, when we do retreat, then it can bring great benefits, very, very incredible benefits. The more you study, the more you can contemplate, and that brings the kind of understanding of the Lamrim. Yeah? And then another thing, last thing I want to say is we will have assessments, kind of exam-like style completion. So when I became a Buddhist monk, having graduated from university, then again in the monastery there were these exams, and we had debate exams, which is very frightening because you have 200-300 questions to prepare, or 200-300 debates to prepare, so to say, and 5 minutes before it's your turn, you have to take one envelope. In that envelope are 2 questions. You can choose one of the 2, and then you have to debate, not just with your classmates, but with a few classes. So there's hundreds of people watching you and checking if you're saying the right thing or the wrong thing. So it's a kind of incredible challenge, But these exams were so beneficial because a lazy person like me, pushing, to go to review the material. If you review the material at the completion of each subject, you will see you get a better overview. Not only you get a better overview, also previous things you maybe misunderstood, now you get a clear picture of it. And new insights will come in the reviews as well. So that's why we have every year, we have possibility to review yourself, like in the month of August and the month of December. But then in January and February, then we have guided review sessions, right? So that means you go over the material again to make it fresh, to get new insights. And this whole play of study and, listening to the talks, discussing question and answer sessions, do some contemplations. We will do contemplations together. We structure kind of guided meditations. So that whole kind of process of study, question and answer session, contemplations, a kind of, review sessions, a kind of assessments that forces us to study it again, that becomes an incredible sophisticated system of understanding the Lamrim. Yeah? It's just tools for us to help us, to push us to get understanding before we actually start really serious with the retreats at the completion. Yeah, so there's a few things I have to say. I like to say about that is an incredible system, not only the knowledge you get, but the way it's structured in a way that it will help you to discuss things, it will help you to review things, and we will organize different separate weekends or separate on the side kind of possibilities to discuss things, so then it becomes a kind of a personal touch that is really needed, especially when you have the communication tool as Zoom, that's in order to bring this kind of family approach, I think is very important. Initially in the monastery, everybody is very individual, though you never have time for yourself because you're always surrounded by other human beings. There's no space, there's no own rooms for many years. So there's incredible practice, but we human beings, we need a kind of social aspect of working together. Also when we did Discovering Buddhism here, then especially last year when we still had on campus, and then it was very interesting to see that there was a group forming, like one little family, so to say, 20-30 people, and that gives so much energy. And then when energy is there, it becomes easy. So as far as the team, same thing. If we all put some effort, then the project of 5 years won't take that much. Of course, work has to be done, from our side, from your side. But if it do it with a team and kind of we have this relationship, then things become easy, So that's, a few, most important things I was planning to share with you. So thank you very much for all your interest. And I hope to see you soon yeah, I hope even to see you sooner. That from the point of view, one more thing, those who are able to come, who live close by, it's always much better to be on campus than to be online, right? It's more personal touch. So when in the, in the coming periods when that's possible again, and there's a possibility for you to attend physically, then I think that's very important, because this tradition, of oral transmissions and traditions of directly, receiving the teachings directly on the foots or in front of the teacher is different than online. Yeah, but those who are not capable of living in different other places of the planet, then of course, then that's why Zoom. I'm just new to Zoom, as I said before, but it's an incredible tool, to share the knowledge with others, which otherwise not possible. Right? So also we do here the sutra readings, and every Sunday we connect with the community here of Jamyang. And as one big family, we gather together. Everybody's in their own living room, but through Zoom we become one family. Read things together, do things together, and it builds a kind of good feeling to do things together, right? So that's also possible with Zoom. Yeah? So, but those who can, of course, attend on campus, then of course better. But yeah, in Zoom we gonna do everything that is needed, yeah, the team and myself, to make it one kind of family feeling for the whole 5 years. And then, yeah, thank you very much for all your interest. And yeah, I hope to see you again. And it's, yeah, very fortunate situation for me also to share some of the knowledge I gained in those 20 years with you. I feel also very fortunate to be able to go through the texts again. So I have opportunity to read, to prepare, to share the knowledge, to discuss things, get maybe new insights. So for me also it's it's a challenge in one way, but a very challenge I'm very happy with. So so that's from my side the things I like to share with you. So thank you very much, and then hope to see you soon. I mean, I see you soon today, of course, doing the question answers. But so thank you very much.